So this is the 07:20 hours GMT edition of the Kudila television channel being broadcast on the internet under the banner of the Baby Angel Geronimo Editions. Baby Angel Geronimo was born 10 calendar years ago in New Zealand and lovingly raised by a woman called Leonie Walker. Baby Angel Geronimo then was invited by a woman called Helen MacDonald, who lives in South Gloucestershire in England. The Baby Angel Geronimo is the world's bestest, most authentic, most reliable, most scientific, rational, ethical, moral witness to the badness, that has been being perpetrated in Little England, the so-called organs of state, the Houses of Parliament in the case of the United Kingdom, so-called, the organs of state, Houses of Parliament, House of Commons, and House of Peers. Then the executive, fronted currently by the sunk Rishi Sunak, in the name of the Conservatives. But Sunak is really a representative of the ones who have money in the in their grip. Sunak doesn't even know. He said he never met a working class person when he was growing up. Baby Angel Geronimo is a witness to the corruption of the British judiciary. Where do we begin? The Baby Angel Geronimo was targeted, intentionally targeted, maliciously, malevolently targeted by the criminals holding positions in the so-called DEFRA in the United Kingdom. And let's remind ourselves of what the DEFRA is. Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. We are responsible for improving and protecting the environment. In the knowledge and on the evidence, on the facts of Baby Angel Geronimo's witnessing, they are not responsible for improving, protecting the environment whatsoever. In fact, the opposite. They say that we aim to grow a green economy. That's a lie. They say that sustaining thriving rural communities, that's a lie. They say we also support our world-leading food, farming, and fishing industries. That is a pack of lies. Our broad remit means we play a major role in people's day-to-day life. From the food we eat and the air we breathe to the water we drink, what a load of absolute rubbish. We are here to make our air purer, our water cleaner, our land greener, and our food more sustainable. Our mission is to restore and enhance the environment for the next generation, leaving it in a better state than we found it. Now, everything that the DEFRA statement here says on the government website is a pack of lies. And it's a pack of lies hiding criminality, corruption. It says complaints procedure. If you have a complaint about the way we operate or the services we provide, please provide details to us in writing by post or email. That's a lie because literally thousands of communications have been made to the liars at DEFRA, giving chapter and verse and absolute exact details of their program of lies and harassment against baby angel Geronimo and against baby angel Geronimo's mum in South Gloucestershire, Helen MacDonald, who has in the most recent report published by the Guardian, I think, has said she's still undergoing therapy for the trauma they have caused her, for being honest, for being caring, for being truthful, for being a loving mom to the baby angel Geronimo, for wanting the best for him, and they have penalized her. They made her feel as if she has been on trial on under a program of torture. This is all on the record. Now, they say that if your complaint relates to DEFRA's policies or the interpretation of legislation, you should address it to the head of the relevant policy division. These complaints fall outside the remit of the complaints adjudicator, so can't be referred to the complaints adjudicator. However, you can ask your MP to take up your complaint with the Secretary of State, Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs at DEFRA or with another DEFRA minister. This is a pack of lies as well. What has happened is that the DEFRA criminal, the main criminal fronting DEFRA during the height of the campaign of vilification, harassment, defamation against baby angel Geronimo, George Injustice Eustace, has now taken a bribe position, pecuniary position, benefiting from insider knowledge. That criminal was in one way or another in paid position in DEFRA for 9 years. And the criminal is completely without any compunction, any morality or ethics. The so called chief vet, The Scottish backgrounded Christian Middlemiss evilness must have been involved centrally in the scripting of the various particular kind of retailed installments, items, editions, bulletins against Baby Angel Geronimo. And she lied, and she lied, and she lied, as did George Injustice Eustace, as did all the other directors, and so on. Anyone who knows about the actual maze or thousands of mazes created by the lying bureaucracy to cover up the truth, to cover up the truth, hide the truth, deny the truth, will know that it is impossible. It will literally take 1,000 years to get to the bottom of what these criminals get up to in the course of one day. For example, the district judge, let's check on the name of this criminal. This is continuing the Baby Angel Geronimo essay, which is to go into very detailed kind of examination of the lies, the untruth, falsehood, and the batil. In the Holy Quran, it says, Innal batila kana zahuka. The falsehood is doomed to perish, to be exposed. The Baby Angel Geronimo has been witnessing the falsification of evidence, falsification of facts, falsification of legislation, so called, by the succession of criminals within DEFRA and also by the succession of criminals DEFRA criminals agenda operation through the so-called court system, the judiciary. So the first district judge was Leighton. Bailey is the source of the legal information that I'm checking while I'm doing the broadcast. Bailey is a short for British and Irish Legal Information Institute. That's where the easiest way to access currently is available. Wasn't always like this. Most of the times, access to legal reports and rulings, etc., was very difficult indeed. And I'll come to that in due course. This is the date 29th of July 2021. And this one is, I'm quoting, I won't ever, strictly speaking, call them Justice, Mr. Justice. I'm quoting this, Mr. Justice Griffiths. In the case, there was an appeal before Griffiths, appeal by Helen MacDonald, Baby Angel Geronimo's mom, an animal, plant, and health agency. This is one of the DEFRA agencies that exists to falsify the truth. And for Baby Angel Geronimo's mom, Helen MacDonald, the licensed law trader who appeared, instructed by Oliphant solicitors, was called Catherine McGahey. She was then designated as a QC. Now she must be KC. The K and Q denoting the difference between the male and the female in the post of monarch. Now, the Queen Granddaughter and King Brian, and the DEFRA Animal and Plant and Health Agency was represented by Ned Westaway, who was instructed by Government Legal Department, and the hearing date was 29th of July 2021. I'll come to that because I'm here checking this one to get the correct name of the criminal district judge. I don't want to get the name wrong for the records. That is what I'm doing. I don't want to be accused of being less than particular, less than accurate, 100% accurate as far as is possible. It is such an outrageous lie, absolutely outrageous lie. Now this is this appeal was by way of case stated against the decision of district judge, that is magistrates court, Layton, Layton. That was the date 4th of May 2021. Sitting at Bristol Magistrates Court, and I won't even read the details of this criminal's order. Now, what this criminal, Griffiths, let me just say one thing though. I am calling these criminals criminals. And I'm saying this on the record, on broadcast, and I'm not saying it for the first time. What I'm doing here is challenging them. In addition to the setting the records there, if they dispute my description of them as criminals, they can take legal action against me. And they can challenge me through the legal action due process if they have any understanding of due process for me to prove that they are criminals. I'm calling them criminals because their utterances have been multiple acts of criminality. They have lied and they have told lies for the DEFRA and for the Animal Plant and Health Agency. And there is no sign in this so called ruling that I have got in front of me in the name of Griffiths that he understands the constitutional framework that should be adhered to. What he is doing, he is abusing his position, and is doing so by disregarding the rights of Baby Angel Geronimo, rights of Helen MacDonald. And he is not showing any recognition. There is no reference in his ruling, as published, as I am looking at, of the United Kingdom's actual, active status as signatory to international treaties, international declarations, international agreements, and so on. There is a thing called, in the jargon that is used, there is a thing called derogation. Now, there is nothing in his ruling that even suggests the existence of a derogation. Derogation from obligation to adhere to the requirements to respect fully Helen Macdonald's rights, to respect fully Baby Angel Geronimo's rights. There is nothing. First of all, there is no acknowledgement of the existence of the treaties, declarations, statements, conventions, and then there is no derogation from any of those. And the central thing about derogation is that you can only derogate, that is to say, depart from the obligation, if there is a national emergency which will be coming into play if the required obligation is observed. So, derogation is only granted, allowed, permitted if the nation would be put in danger. Now, there is nothing. There is nothing in a billion years that can be found that Baby Angel Geronimo represented anything at that time or any time that would warrant derogation. And yet, this criminal, Griffith says, without any reference to any basis in international law, that the Secretary of State is entitled. Fuck him. There is no such thing as entitled. You fucking shit. Only evidence, only facts matter. And without evidence, without any facts, there is no entitlement. Especially when the entitlement is being invoked to support a criminal act, a major criminal act, like committing murder. How the fuck? So, all these questions should have been raised by Catherine McGahey. But there is no evidence that Catherine McGahey raised these questions or issues, or any of the hundreds of other related issues and questions. Now, as I said before in one of the previous broadcasts, this name McGahey is unusual. The only other McGahey that has crossed my kind of knowledge, if you like, my attention, was the trade union communist person called Mick McGahey, who I think passed away. Whether or not she is connected with or related to Mick McGahey is secondary. The only justification for referring to a McGahey being related to another McGahey is the suggestion, the possible suggestion, that the status quo being corrupt, the British judicial status quo being corrupt, anyone who is remotely sympathetic to the replacement of the corrupt system, status quo, would be amenable to the suggestion that this individual, perpetrator, and agent of the lying agenda narrative, Griffiths, was wrong, and he was wrong, of course. And it is not a criminal offense. It is not a criminal offense, it's not a civil offense or civil wrong for any advocate or licensed law trading representative to put forward a list of questions that are consistent with the current status of the United Kingdom as a signatory to the conventions, to the declarations, to the agreements, to the treaties whatsoever. So Catherine McGahey may have convinced whoever instructed her that she was doing the most she could do. In one sense, it may be acceptable that she was doing all that she could do, the most that she could do. So, who are the Oliphant solicitors? We shall examine them in due course, not necessarily in this edition, but we shall examine them. And I think that the burden would be on them. To what extent did they even know what I have just said about these various treaties, declarations, conventions, agreements, statements, etc.? And did they care about baby angel Geronimo being eligible to claim protection from these criminals because all these treaties, declarations, conventions provided protection for the likes of baby angel Geronimo, who has been the subject of intentional harassment, demonization, defamation, distortion, discrimination, lies, contempt, spite, envy, hatred. Did the Oliphant solicitors understand that there had to be derogation? There had to be a case established for derogation if there was such a case by Animal, Plant and Health Agency. Did Animal, Plant and Health Agency raise a question of derogation? Here is baby angel Geronimo standing there in his home in South Gloucestershire next to his mum, Helen MacDonald. And the two of them are innocent. And the two of them shall forever be and remain innocent. Is that ground for demonizing them? Is that ground? Does being innocent constitute a threat to the guilty? And who are the guilty ones that baby angel Geronimo and his mom, Helen MacDonald, threatened. In what way? Griffiths had no idea. As a jobbing judge, Griffith just delivered the rubber stamp that he was required to do. Now, taking a wider look at the jurisprudence, in the English jurisprudence, let's say, going back centuries, I'm saying, and I'm challenging anyone, any student of law, any professor of law, any KC, any former QC, etc., etc. There is no evidence, there is no record in the whole of the jurisprudence of English law, which I say is the dominant one. It contemptuously treats Welsh as an addendum and Cornwall as a non-existent addendum, part of the corruption inherent entailed in the English judiciary. In none of the published accessible cases, reasoning is there any occasion when the independent component or the independent constitution of the judiciary in relation to the executive, either the king or the state, the government, has there been one single occasion when the judiciary has rebelled, told the truth? There has never been. In the case of the Poplar councillors in 1921, against the rates imposed on the poor people of Poplar by the conservative regime in the United Kingdom, the Poplar councillors, led by George Lansbury, who later went on to become leader for a short time, though, of the Labour Party, which was just about beginning to be formed. These councillors committed no crime. The only crime they committed was ask for justice, ask for fairness. And for their campaign for justice and fairness for their constituents, the local people of Poplar, in the 1920s, 1921, these councillors were imprisoned. That is the example. That is the record. Not very ethical, is it? Not very moral. Most certainly not just. So, Baby Angel Geronimo, when we say that Baby Angel Geronimo is the world's bestest witness to the worst possible state, we mean things like that. In the 1970s, and I was part of the campaign, Berry and Campbell. Now, the Campbell is Duncan Campbell, not the Duncan Campbell, that has been associated for some time with The Guardian, both Scottish. But Duncan Campbell is a scientist and is a campaigning investigative journalist. So Duncan Campbell is the Campbell, and Aubrey is Crispin Aubrey, who was a campaigning journalist, and Berry was a soldier, ex-soldier. So they were prosecuted under the Official Secrets Act. And their prosecution can be mentioned in the broad context of the prosecution of, say, for example, the former civil servant that leaked internal civil service memo to the Guardian about the nuclear connection with the USA. And there can be other prosecutions that can be cited. Essentially, what I'm saying is that the only highlight of the English judiciary is a damnable highlight, suppression, suppressing the truth and justice. So much so that even the Argentinian criminal was given judicial support in England. Can you believe that? Yes, you can believe that. While the whole world, civil world, if you like, was outraged by the Argentinian criminals, dictatorship criminals, criminality. The English judiciary showed two fingers to all of that and allowed the Argentinian dictator entitlement. Fuck them. So Baby Angel Geronimo has been witnessing in the strict domain of records as well as wider kind of context the truth about the behavior of the English judiciary, the English state. For example, one of the items that appeared in one of the tabloids in the course of the coverage, if you like, or cover ups of the true motives behind DEFRA in persisting in promoting the lies against Baby Angel Geronimo. One of the reasons that was cited by just one outlet was that that was a policy decision. It wasn't a scientific decision. It was not, as I said earlier in this today's bulletin, derogation. It was nothing to do with the facts or the evidence, but it was a policy decision to punish Helen MacDonald by harassing her and by making her feel as if she was under a regime of torture. She was being tortured as they kept refusing to take the most basic versions of the truth that she was putting to them truthfully about the state of Baby Angel Geronimo. The reason why they were pursuing that policy was to frighten thousands of humans owning animals from taking otherwise legitimate, lawful, constitutional, fair legal action against DEFRA for mass murdering thousands of innocent animals on the false pretense and pretext that those murdered, massacred, beloved animals were infected. They were not. They were perfectly healthy animals and they mass murdered them. Various propaganda lines issued by the government.uk website about various options that people have, like this today's kind of retrieving of the item from government.uk website about DEFRA. They've got complaints, and if you don't find the outcome acceptable, then you can go to this, that, and the other outfit. These are all bullshit, rubbish. For example, they mention one of the things that they mention about the access to information is the information commissioner. Now, I am a campaigner for information, integrity of information, access to information, and I have been a campaigner for decades before this information commission post was confected in the UK under the influence of this highly overstated, overrated American woman campaigner who is part of an agency operation. She is not really a campaigner, but I mean, the fact that the United Kingdom didn't have a quote domestic kind of campaigner who could influence or successfully campaign for the establishment of an information campaigner commissioner shows the absurdity of the claim that the British have got an exemplary judicial model at any point. This information commissioner that has been created is a complete joke. As those who campaigned against the role played by Facebook and others in sabotaging the campaigners against Brexit have found out. So, the policy that was mentioned by one outlet only, which was given as a rationale, as a kind of explainer, if you like, as a clue as to why they were so bent on demonizing baby angel Geronimo, was not a policy based on the truth about their role or duty as on paper to protect the environment, protect the people and society, etc., etc. But they wanted to frighten victims of their previous massacring of innocent animals. So they wanted to commit another murder. Where do you find that as a civilizing experience, as an example of civilization? Where? So this is the continuation installment, if you like, of the Baby Angel Geronimo essay. We shall be continuing with other parts, other contextual evidence, etc. Now, today's Times newspaper has got a main heading: Accident and emergency delays put patients in danger, says doctor. Can you believe that? It's not a somebody just walking past the hospital that is making that comment. It's a doctor. And the subheading is fears raised as total NHS waiting list hits 7.7 million. And if you look at the Daily Mail, and if you look at the Daily Rupert Murdoch, the scum, or the remnant of the criminal, Beaverbrook, the Daily Express, or the Daily Boris Graph, Daily Telegraph, you won't find evidence of acknowledgement of intentional negligence to provide health service on the part of this government or on the part of the various agencies under the so-called supposed supervision of the current government that has been in place for effectively 14 calendar years. How could, where do you begin? Where do you begin to justify, out of a population of just under 70 million, nearly 8 million people waiting list? How do you justify that? How did that happen? How can that huge number be allowed to build? And the answer is that in this United Kingdom, so called, there is no government, there is no accountability, there is no audit, there is no truthfulness. And even the Times newspaper, which I am reading from, referring to, has not performed as a really truth telling, truthful, investigative newspaper. 7 million, 7.7 million didn't just happen. It must have happened over a period of time. And the Times has been publishing, sleepwalking. How did it ignore this accumulation? And there is another picture, another piece on the DNA. It says DNA tests lead to needless breast operations. Where do you begin to express your shock and contempt and outrage? I mean, which part do you blame first? The wrong tests or the wrong, needless, deadly, murderous, killing operations? When they talk about the HS2, high speed 2, here is the piece on page 2 of the Times. So the HS2 faces another trim delays in effort to cut costs. Now, it has already become the most expensive, wasteful project, exceeding 100 billion pounds. Now, who are these people who are supposed to be the auditors, the accountants? Who checks the actual sums within the government. So if you extrapolate that kind of lack of care and lack of attention to detail, lack of application, you can begin to see that in attacking Baby Angel Geronimo, they were operating in a culture that not only allows but actually demands injustice. How else could Baby Angel Geronimo be denied repeatedly? How else could he be denied repeatedly the basic scientific, logical option, opportunity that if he was guilty, which is not true, of having tested positive, then the only way to resolve that with Helen Macdonald's rejection of that assertion was to allow a truly independent test. What were they afraid of? The answer is they were afraid of the truth. Because Baby Angel Geronimo never tested positive. Because Baby Angel Geronimo was never truly independently, objectively, scientifically tested. Everything that was done was to prime, to rig whatever was described, labeled as a test. It wasn't a test, it was fraud, it was fake. They knew it, and everyone else knew it. So they would not allow a test. So the Angel Geronimo was never tested ever when they made the decision that they would not allow him to be tested. They never would allow him to be tested. There is this heading on the Metropolitan Police paying money to the two women who were arrested at the vigil in honor of Sarah Everard. But the heading conceals the truth. It says women arrested at Everard Vigil welcome payouts from the Met. That's not the heading that the story deserves. The story deserves that the Metropolitan Police has been forced to apologize to the women wrongly arrested for showing solidarity with Sarah Everard and other women victims of police violence and crimes, etc., etc. The point is to be made that the woman who was the commissioner at the time, who must be held responsible for the harassment of the women protesting against the kidnapping, rape, murder of Sarah Everard was a woman. How could a woman commissioner of the London Metropolitan Police do that? What excuse was there? Think about that. So there is suspension of disbelief. Not once. There are any number of criminals allowed to wear the uniform of the police, even at this stage, at this time. These criminals should not be wearing the police uniform or be carrying a police badge. They are criminals. They should be prosecuted behind bars and in prisons. The fact that they are not and that they are still police showed that there is no policing in Britain. And the fact that Sadiq Khan, who is the de facto police authority, Sadiq Khan is one who was installed as an ethnicity backgrounded licensed law trader with experience of dealing with cases involving police racism, police corruption, police brutality. How could Sadiq Khan be allowed to remain unmentioned, unaccountable over what the police did to Sarah Everard and to those solidarizing with Sarah Everard and the other women victims of police racism and sexism? Who gave Sadiq Khan the impunity from accountability? All of these are examples of the evidence on which Baby Angel Geronimo bases his case. As the two angels recording every act by every human being, the the angels record on each of the shoulders will be presented on the day of judgment as the evidence. Similarly, what Baby Angel Geronimo has been witnessing will be put on the table on the day of judgment to show The facts and the extent of the criminality, the wrongness, the evilness done by the criminals at DEFRA, and the evilness of DEFRA that was propagated by the mainstream media, endorsed by the so called judiciary, aided and abetted by the congenital liar Boris Johnson, in post of the so called incumbent of the Prime Minister, endorsed by the criminals Keir Starmer, who is desperately overhyping himself to be the next incumbent at number 10 Downing Street. The only explanation for the DEFRA criminals' criminality against Baby Angel Geronimo is that they are evil doing, wrongdoing criminals, only able to do what they have been doing because all the other organs and agencies and observers and observatories that are supposedly there to hold these criminals to account have decided to collude with the liars and lying and disarm their careers. If Catherine McGahey decided that it was not possible to challenge most of the criminality, wrongdoing of the legal bureaucracy, if she decided that, then she must have decided that against the duty to demand justice that she was under and she remains under. If the solicitor, Oliphant solicitors, decided to collude with that line, then they did that dishonestly. They cannot say that they did their best to advance the case for justice for Baby Angel Geronimo. We shall be ending at this time, which is 1 hour 2 minutes, maybe 1 hour 3 minutes, and we shall continue in later editions on all the other topical updater items that can be mentioned as we move forward.